The world is full of good. When you believe it, you see it. And it's good to see you. Words spoken many thousands of times by this former serial entrepreneur and telehealth executive who wore his last pair of pants 5 years ago. If you're at HIMSS or any major healthcare event, you're likely to see some of today's top leaders wearing a pair of knee-high, black-moustached PinkSocks. Why? Because they become part of a growing social movement called the PinkSocks Tribe. On today's show, we have Nick Adkins, the founder of PinkSocks, a man whose passion burns a powerful message of gifting, connecting, and the need for genuine change into the hearts and minds of doctors, healthcare business leaders, politicians, and even world leaders. Get ready for PinkSocks and bluer skies right here on Red Hot Healthcare. Let's go.
3 alarm and 21 and north. All engines respond.
This is Red Hot Healthcare. Interviews with today's leaders and all the news that matters. Here's your host, Steve Ambrose.
Hello and great to have you aboard. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Ambrose. For past and upcoming episodes, find us on iTunes and most podcast directories, or on our eye-catching website, redhothealthcare.com. In a world of well-dressed executives, powerful deals, and transformational technology, this former health tech COO wears a kilt, sports colorfully tattooed arms, and rides a pink furry bike. Most of all, he never goes anywhere without wearing his knee-high pink socks because they carry a powerful message that he's bound innately to share. Nick Adkins grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, went on to get his MBA from Belmont University. He founded a company linking doctors and patients through asynchronous video telemedicine. Today, he sits on the advisory board for Cloudbreak Health and dedicates his life to spreading the message of PinkSocks and the difference its wearers make to their communities. This is the story of PinkSocks and its founder, Nick Adkins. Nick, it's great to have you on Red Hot Healthcare.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
You've just gotten back from Burning Man, and we're going to get into that quite a bit on our conversation. Anyone who knows you, Nick, knows that you don't really like to have the light shined on yourself. You don't like to really talk about yourself a lot. It's about the mission. But I think it's really important for the listening audience to know the Nick Adkins that happened before what we're going to call this transformation. There was a transformation in your life. Tell us a little bit about Nick Adkins before 2010, before this transformation that happened.
Yeah, certainly. As you said, I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and then I went off to undergrad at the University of Southern Mississippi down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and then ended up in Nashville and ended up going to business school. And my first job out of business school at Belmont was working at the Vanderbilt Health Plans. That was back in the day when HMOs were just coming online and were still a good thing at that point. It's funny kind of how what's old is new and what's new is old, how that kind of comes back around. This was
Right.
this was probably the mid 90s, and if you remember, they were pushing for the patient's Bill of Rights.
Yep.
And that's the same kind of drumbeat mantra we hear all the time now about patient engagement, patient experience, and patients wanting to own their own data. But I lived in Nashville from 1988 until 2012. And as you probably know, Nashville is a major hub of U.S. healthcare. A lot of the largest corporations and hospital companies are based there. I used to refer to it as the Mecca or the Jerusalem of healthcare. So I did a couple of runs in the payroll business, was the COO of a couple of healthcare companies, was the CEO of a regulated medical waste company. And wow, that was a unique job. It was really the only job I've had in my career that was considered a blue-collar job. We ran 3 plants that processed medical waste. I think I've been just about everywhere on the healthcare delivery continuum. You know, the last train stop of the line is the regulated medical waste business, and there's nowhere else to go from there. It's the end of the line,
Right.
And then was the CEO of a medical billing practice management company. up selling that business, and I moved to Portland, Oregon in April of 2012.
You were really a suit and tie guy. It's hard to imagine, in the audience as they get to know more about you and they see images of you both on your site and probably on this podcast here that we're going to be sharing. You were the consummate suit and tie corporate guy, right?
I was that guy. Custom suits, cufflinks, suspenders that I called braces, called my pants trousers.
True Southerner.
And, I had hair back in those days, and I wore my hair slicked back like Pat Riley.
You were the Bud Fox of healthcare.
Yeah, right. The Gordon Gecko.
That's right. So 2010 comes around, and you undergo what I'm going to call, and I know what you've called, a transformational experience at Burning Man. For the audience members not in the know, Burning Man is, as I've understood it, a temporary city that gets built in Nevada, and it's like a global cultural movement. And there's collaborative efforts, there's gifting, there's civic responsibility taught, a lot of real, what they call chief principles. Why did you decide to go to Burning Man? It's 2010, and what, you're in your 40s, right, at that point?
Correct. In 2010, I was 45. I'd first heard about Burning Man probably 10 years prior on a business trip down to New Orleans. We were doing quite a bit of business in New Orleans at the time. And so I caught the last flight down from Nashville and went rolling into my favorite place to eat, which is the Redfish Grill right off a canal there on Bourbon Street. I came rolling in at 9:30 at night. The place is packed. And they said, well, do you want to sit at the bar? And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So I come rolling in my suit, my braces, and my Mont Blanc pen and cufflinks.
You're doing it right.
And sit at the bar. Yeah, right. And sat at the bar, and the bartender said, do you like oysters? I said, sure, I love oysters. She said, have you ever tried barbecued oysters? I said, no. I said, do you want to try them? I said, yeah, I'd love to try some barbecued oysters. So I ended up ordering like 5 dozen of these things, through the meal. And at the end of the meal, when the bartender came to bring me the check, she leaned over the bar and she looked at me and she said, I'm going to tell you something that's going to change your life. And I'm like, kind of looking around like, you talking to me? I was like, okay. Yeah, I was like, okay, what do you got?
Don't say plastics. Anything with plastics.
So she looks at me right in the eyes with intent and says, have you ever heard of Burning Man? I said, no, what is it? And she said, well, it's a festival in the desert of Nevada. And at that time, it was 15,000 people. So it's now grown to 70,000 people that gather. She said, it's 15,000 people that gather in the desert. And this is where it gets really fun. She looks at me and she says, and you're ready.
She said, you're ready?
Yeah. And Steve, I had no idea what that meant at the time. I know what it means now, having gone. But at that time, I was like, huh. So I said, well, let me write that down.
With your Mont Blanc pen.
Out here. Yeah. And so I wrote down Burning Man. I said, well, when I get back home tomorrow, I'll look it up. And, back then, Al Gore had recently invented the internet, so there wasn't a whole lot of information online. But I looked it up and I was like, hey, this looks pretty interesting. So I called this friend of mine that I grew up with in Memphis who lives in San Diego. And I said, hey, go look at this thing. We ought to go do this. And we looked at it and then, never really circled back at it. And timing, my children were small time. It's going to be hard to take that much time. And just never thought about it again. And then in 2010, so fast forward 10 years to 2010, I get a call from my same friend in San Diego. He says, hey, do you remember that thing we looked at about 10 years ago, the Burning Man thing? I go, yeah, kind of. And I really, Steve, I hadn't even thought about it in the last 10 years. So I jumped back, at this point, there's tons of stuff on the internet about it.
Right.
And I said, well, yeah, 45 this year. Let's do this thing. We're not getting any younger, and let's go have an adventure. And
nice.
The only caveat was, I told my friend, let's get the tickets, but depending on where my dad is, I may be able to go. I may need to stay home. My dad had been diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, basically blood cancer. He'd been diagnosed a couple years prior, but that was the caveat. So we buy the tickets. That was February of 10, I believe. And in June of 2010, my dad passed away. And so really, his passing gave me the Yeah, the permission and the self-space to go do this thing. And it's really hard to say what Burning Man is. I'm always telling people, look, it's 70,000 people from all around the world, all ages, all walks of life. It's 70,000 people having 70,000 unique experiences. So whatever Burning Man needs to be for each person is what it is. And we're all sharing space in this, basically a societal experiment for a week to see what happens when it's not about money. So there's no corporate sponsorships, logos, brands. Everything is gifted during the week. You don't purchase any goods or food or drinks. Everything, you go from camp to camp to camp, and everyone's just sharing what they have. And, it's number one, you're surviving the desert for a week. It's the high desert in Nevada. It's about 2 hours outside of Reno. It's the dark side of the moon out there. And it's just, you have to survive it. It can be very hot in the daytime and it can be very cold at night. And you're at altitude. And you have to stay hydrated. And there are 10 principles that the city runs on that week that every burner agrees to sign off on, that we're going to live by these 10 principles while we're out here so the city doesn't collapse. And some of those things are radical inclusion, radical self-reliance, radical self-expression, the sense of community, gifting, which is my favorite, which is really what the PinkSocks movement really grew out of. Yeah, it becomes the 5th largest city in the state of Nevada for 1 week every year, and then vanishes without a trace, leave no trace. It's another principle. And the land is pristine. This playa, this desert, goes back to its original pristine state. You never know that there were 70,000 people living on that spot for a week.
Right.
It's really quite fantastic. Beautiful art, good music, just sharing space with a lot of like-minded people who have journeyed from far to get there. And it is a journey. That's part of it. It's not a vacation destination. There's no pool. There's no room service. It's just very hot and dusty. And
you know what I like that we talked about too is you said that there are billionaires there, and then there are people there that aren't even worth, financially much at all. And there's people from the arts world, there's people from the sports world, there's people from the business world. There's basically, you go there and you may not even know a person's true name, or a lot of people don't even tell each other their true name.
Right.
They sort of lose that, right?
Correct. You can look all this up and you can see who goes. I mean, Larry and Sergey from Google, they're burners. Zuckerberg, Facebook, burner. A lot of Silicon Valley tech guys, burners. You've got doctors, lawyers, teachers, hippies, everything in between, from babies to people that are, pushing 100 years old. The desert has this magical thing of leveling everyone, because out there, you're off the balance sheet. It's not about who you are, how much money you have. We're all the same. We're just humans. We're out there covered in dust, trying to survive this thing and love ourselves and love each other.
Right? And
so I tell people the biggest party foul you can make at Burning Man is to ask somebody, hey, so what kind of work are you in? That's huge. Don't do that. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You're going to identify with a person in that moment, in that now that you share space with them, as just connecting with another human.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that look at this just from the outside and start to look at the website and they say, oh my God, I could never do that. Or, oh, that looks so this or that. And they just throw on their judgments. I was a chiropractor for probably about 22 years, and it takes me back to those people that would come into my office and they would say, oh, no. I don't want that done to me. I mean, that looks horrible when you're cracking the neck or cracking the back or whatever. Oh, that looks so painful. It looks, it's gross. And yet, there would be a time where those people, by and large, would come in at some segment of their life later on, and they'd say, oh my God, my back is killing me. Or, oh, I can't move my head. I can't move my neck at all. I'm all stiff. Can you help me? And once they got adjusted, it was, and I don't want to go off the reservation too much, but for many of these people, it was magical. It was almost as if the minute they received an adjustment, everything they thought about, what they thought chiropractic was, evaporated, and it became almost an innate experience to the point where they said, there's something very right about this. I've really misjudged this.
Right.
And I wonder if that happens at Burning Man. I wonder if that even happened to you when you first came to Burning Man. I mean, where there were these expectations and maybe these judgments and maybe how to act, cultural norms. And then all of a sudden, things start to turn day after day, maybe even minute after minute, right?
Absolutely. So one of the things in 2010 when I was getting ready to go, I did all of the studying, all the research, found everything I could possibly find online about Burning Man and what I should do and what I shouldn't do and what to expect. And I've got everything in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm totally type A chief operating officer on this thing.
Yeah.
And the night before I left to fly to San Diego, because my friend Bruce and I were going to drive in together from San Diego, I was watching a video online by this guy named John Halcyon Sten, who runs a camp out there called Pink Heart. And the video was saying, okay, you've prepped, you're ready to go. This is the last thing you need to know before you get there. And he said, I know that you've probably got stuff in a spreadsheet. And was like, what? He's talking to me. I was like, yes, I've got it in the spreadsheet. But he says, now what you need to do is you need to let go of expectation. Just show up. Just go. Let it go. And so that's what I did. Before we rolled over the line at the gate, I said, show me the magic. I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to be open, willing, present to have the experience without any expectation. And that's where, the first magic of the playa happened for me, was allowing myself to do that. And then it wasn't 30 minutes later. I mean, we're setting up our camp. I'm watching people go by and just taking in the vastness of it all. And I had this thought, Steve, I said to myself, wow, you're in the middle of a freak show here. And then the slow moving silver bullets coming right at my forehead, just like in the Matrix, I could see it coming and like, tuk, 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 boom. I had this epiphany, this gestalt moment that said, no, Nick, you are the freak show. And so in that moment, I was able to let go of all of my judgment, that whole construct that we live our lives in based on, past experiences and biases, and, that we just are continually judging things, even at a subconscious level. What if you can let go of that? What if you can just sit with yourself without judging yourself or without judging other people and just be? And so that was really my first big awakening, to let go of that construct of judgment and just simply be.
It's funny you bring that up, Nick, because today on our taping is September 11th.
Right.
And I can remember a lot about that day. And I can remember also looking at people on television and seeing these people hugging each other, black people, white people, Chinese people, different religions.
People.
Exactly. All the descriptive terms, all the differentiators, just melting away, people being people, like you said, when they come together and there's no judgment and they start bonding for a common purpose. There was a period probably of, a good month or so after that happened. People were putting the magnetic flags on their cars. People were people. And it was a horrible event, but really coming off that event, I think, was a feeling of camaraderie and love and closeness and bonding and so much melting away. This is Dr. Steve Ambrose. As a healthcare influencer, I'm in contact with some of the brightest minds and most powerful leaders in the industry. But my best effort comes from outside the booth. Knowing how to engage patients is an art, science, and philosophy that I know very well. I'm a hired gun that brings expertise to healthcare organizations of all types. You've heard my words. Now read my thoughts on my free white paper called The 7 Mistakes Made in Patient Engagement. Just go to redhothealthcare.com/learn. That's redhothealthcare.com/learn. While you're on the site, dive into my consulting and speaking services and schedule an initial call. You won't regret the uniqueness, benefits, and results I can deliver for you. And now, back to the show. You come out of your first Burning Man, and certainly that transformation changed your life. when does PinkSocks, first of all, what happens after you left Burning Man? And then how does that lead into and then begin the PinkSocks movement?
The PinkSocks really didn't start till 2015, was when HIMSS was in Chicago that year. And Andrew Richards, a friend of mine, he's now Chief Technology Innovation Officer at Washington State University's New Med School in Spokane. Andrew and I were going to HIMSS in Chicago in 2015 and said, hey, look, I always wear kilts and I always wear fun socks. And I said, we ought to just go in there, and everywhere we go, people are always commenting on my socks. What if we just pick one, and every time somebody comments on our socks, we'll just, say, hey, greetings from Portland. And, I've got a pair of socks for you. And so the crowd favorites, kind of ended up being these pink socks with the mustaches. So that's what we loaded our little backpacks up with that year and went to HIMSS. And that's exactly what we did. We just started giving away these socks and making people smile and making new connections. And I've kept doing that at a couple of other conferences through the year. And, we're just having fun with it, right? And just it's good Twitter fodder, and we're playing along on Twitter. And about a year, of doing that, I was like, okay, enough. Let's don't go back to, so the conference circuit's coming around for the next year. So we can't go back. This has already been done. Let's just stop. And then somebody sent me a message on Twitter and said, hey, did you see this group over here in the Netherlands? I'm like, no, what? And he's like, they're giving away pink socks. Did you do that? I'm like, no. And then a group in Wales popped up giving away pink socks. And I'm like, what? And so at that point, we realized that it had gone organic, and
Nice.
that people were buying pink socks and gifting pink socks on their own that we had never met, and that they were just doing it, from their own heart. And that's really what it is, man. I mean, this whole pink socks movement, it's a community united in changing the world from the ground up with heartbeat hugs and gifting, and it's a lot like Burning Man. So people say, well, what do the pink socks mean?
Right, exactly. I get that all the time. What are the pink socks? What are they about with healthcare? Is it healthcare transformation? Is it healthcare technology? Is it fixing healthcare? What are the pink socks?
It's all of the above, right? It's really, the movement's a paradox. It's a community that's made of individual missions. So whatever it needs to be about for you is what it is, right? So there's a group in Wales that's using it for ataxia, a rare disease, to drive awareness for ataxia. In the Netherlands, a couple of groups for Alzheimer's and dementia. There's a group in North Carolina that's doing it to around child hunger. They're doing a program where they feed hungry children in North Carolina. There's hospitals that use it for patient engagement, patient experience. Pharmaceutical companies use it for innovation, digital health. Carmen Kabsa and My Clinic Care in India using it for breast cancer screening detection for women, and and on and on. I mean, it's just whatever they need to mean for you is great. I mean, for me, they're just a wonderful reminder that once upon a time I was able to share space with someone and share a smile and meet someone new and connect with them, because had I not been wearing the pink socks that day, I would have missed that person in the universe. At the heart of the Pink Socks movement is this gift of connection, of meeting someone new, of gifting them some pink socks, of gifting them just the gift of a smile and sharing space with them.
It means different things for different people, but if there'd be a common string here, it really is about connectivity. People that do wear the socks, they're known as the tribe. Tell me a little bit about the Pink Socks tribe.
It's from C-level executives, all the way down to the guy parking cars in the valet lot and everywhere in between. And so, to see somebody in a suit jump into these pink socks and see a nurse or a lab tech or a patient or a person at the post office or the grocery store, it doesn't matter who we are, where you are on the org chart. We're just a bunch of people with a common belief that we're doing our part to make a positive impact in the world, to change it for the better. Just one smile at a time, one pair of pink socks at a time.
You pride yourself on the fact that the last pair of pants that you wore was in 2012. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so typically you wear a kilt, you ride a furry bicycle, a pink furry bicycle, certainly not the normal look, especially at HIMSS. And tell me a little bit about what the reaction has been with that. I mean, I'm sure you get the looks, the judgments. I'm sure you also get people coming up to you that you never thought would come up to you, and they're intrigued. It opens doors, I would imagine.
Yeah. When I moved to Portland in April of 2012, in June of that year, I met a burner who owns a kilt company here, makes kilts. And he said, Nick, have you ever worn a kilt? I said, no. And he said, well, do you want to try one? And I said, yes, because Steve, yes is where the fun is. Yes is where the adventure is. If you say no, the story ends, right? And so I started wearing a kilt. And when you wear a kilt, your socks always show. So you have to wear fun socks. So I started wearing fun socks. My bike is a pink furry bike. It's my Burning Man bike, and it became my everyday bike. Call it the Pink Cadillac. I don't even realize I'm wearing a kilt anymore. So
when you're not worried about people's perceptions of you, when you truly are living in that space where you don't have judgment and you don't react to people's judgments, I mean, my goodness, that's a freedom, frankly, that is, I mean, I'll just tell you, frankly, I'm a bit jealous of it because so many of us are so worried about what people think of us. What do people think of me? What am I doing wrong? What did I say wrong? What did I wear different? What did I,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've met some really awesome people, and I've heard some really great heart speak, some stories they've shared. We never know what a difference we're making in someone else's life, right? Sometimes just a smile can change somebody's whole day. You've had pink socks, and you can talk to over 20,000 other people around the world that are wearing pink socks. When they wear those socks each day, there's always a connection made. Someone throughout the day that sees those socks is going to comment on them. And that's always your opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute. This is the universe serving something up here, serving a gift for me right now. I need to stop and I need to talk to this person.
Who would be some of the notable names that are in the Pink Socks tribe?
Well, there's everybody from, Anish Chopra, the first CTO of the United States, he's got pink socks. I mean, Jonathan Bush has pink socks. Eric Topol's got pink socks. I mean, you're on Twitter. I mean, people like Jamie Edwards at Cloudbreak, Eugene Barukovich at Bayer over in Germany, Joba Babian that runs the healthcare leader.
Isn't there a queen that has socks too?
She's actually a princess. Yeah.
Oh,
over in the Netherlands. Yeah.
The princess of the Netherlands has a pair of pink socks.
Right. There's just too many to give shout outs to. I mean, just so many awesome people. Ignar over in the Netherlands with what he's doing with dementia care. Dr. Amir, who's in London and growing the tribe in the UK. It's fun to watch.
You're speaking at San Francisco, upcoming, I believe. You're speaking at TEDx. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's going to be at the HIMSS Theater in San Francisco on October 10th. They reached out and said, hey, we'd love for you to come tell the Pink Socks story at TED.
Fantastic.
Like, wow. So I'm really, really looking forward to doing that.
What'd they tell you? They said get ready. They said get ready to bring your socks and to have your socks ready.
Yeah. They said get ready. So it's good.
How can the show listeners get a pair of these socks? How can they get a pair of pink socks and for whatever purpose they'd like to make it, get connected and be a part of that connectivity message of Pink Socks?
Absolutely. The website is pinksocks.life, pinksocks.life. And we're updating the website. So hopefully by the time this airs, the website will be updated. There'll be a page that says gift socks, order socks there. The socks, they come a dozen at a time because the deal here is you don't want to just wear the socks. You want to be able to have some socks with you to gift to someone.
Right.
That's really part of the magic is saying, oh, well, by the way, thank you for commenting on my socks and me meeting you. By the way, I have to have something in my bag here for you right now. To watch somebody burst out with the biggest smile you've ever seen over a pair of pink socks is fun. And I will tell you that it's probably addictive because you end up giving more socks than you think. And like I say, I give socks away all the time. So it's just at the post office, the grocery store, wherever. It's not just healthcare conferences. And so hopefully that page will be ready. If not, you can always reach out on Twitter to me at NickIsInPDX. And if you're not on Twitter, there is a Pink Socks page on Facebook as well. And, if you really want to get some socks, man, email me. And I'm happy to give you my email if you want that.
Yeah, please.
So it's NickIsInPDX. So it's the same as my Twitter handle, NickIsInPDX @gmail.com.
Nick Adkins. I'd like to describe you as a humanitarian, giver, connector, server, lover. Certainly somebody who's transformational. And truly, I think you've brought a great message, not just into healthcare, but into our society as a whole, one that I think that we've learned how to forget. And we need to relearn again. So I know for me, it's a wonderful, resonating message. And for our listeners, I would strongly advocate that you reach out to Nick. Go to the PinkSocks.life page. You can reach out to Nick directly. But get into the tribe. Get into the tribe. Get your heart into it. And Nick, I appreciate your heart being into it. And we certainly appreciate you making the time to be on Red Hot Healthcare today.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Red Hot Healthcare with Steve Ambrose. Subscribe to us on most major podcast directories. For media or business inquiries, reach out to media@redhothealthcare.com. Thanks for listening. This is Denny Colonna. We're out of here.